Offseason approaching. We finally met Nick Caley, and we know one thing about the new OC.
I like tight ends.
He likes tight ends.
I like tight ends.
People like tight ends. Many people like tight ends. That's his background. Tight end, I would say, was one of the most frustrating positions for the Houston Texans outside of the offensive line. And I think it's the most intriguing thing is going to be how he handles these guys, how the Texans approach the position, and what happens. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots. Be sure to subscribe, like, ride along. We'll be at the Combine in less than 10 days, so we hope you ride with us on that. The tight end position, Cody, last year, you had a heavy investment in Dalton Schultz.
Yep.
You had a Brevin Jordan prove-it season gone wrong.
Yep.
Then you had a draft selection on Cade Stover, and then you had just a bunch of guys just filling space basically last year.
Yeah.
How do they approach the tight end position this offseason?
Well, they've got 3 tight ends on the roster right now. Dalton Schultz isn't going anywhere. Cade Stover's not going anywhere. And then Brevin Jordan, they signed him to a contract extension, obviously with some hopes that he's going to bounce back pretty well from the knee injury. And that's a huge question mark when training camp gets here. What does Brevin Jordan look like? How well is he responding? I mean, he got hurt early in the regular season. It's still coming back from a knee injury, but it was an earlier injury. And then they've got free agency if they want to go get some veterans just to have guys in there to compete for a spot. And then this is one of the deeper tight end classes in recent memory, according to the draft nicks. And when I was at the Senior Bowl, I watched probably 5 or 6 guys that would have been nice draft picks for the Texans, maybe late part of this draft, just to have in the room. I'll be interested to see if they're going to keep 3, if they're going to keep 4, because if they keep 4, then there's obviously a little bit more room for somebody. But if they're only keeping 3, then really somebody's going to come in and beat Brevin Jordan out for a roster spot because Stover and Schultz aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know if stranger things have happened than Stover not being on the team. Would I bet on it? I think stranger things have happened than getting rid of a 4th-round pick in year 2. I don't anticipate it happening, but I mean,
it wasn't bad. Like I understand getting rid of a bad player, but he wasn't bad.
I know, but if you can upgrade, and I mean, just stranger things have happened.
Well, if you can upgrade, get rid of another position, keep 4.
Well, my thing is this: I think that they should be proactively open to improving the position.
Absolutely.
I think staying put at this position is foolish. I don't think they're set. Like if you're looking at this as, okay, we're set at the tight end position, I think it would be a mistake, especially given the opportunity. Because it's one thing to say it about the offensive line. You don't necessarily have an opportunity to get a right guard of the future, a left guard of the future, a center of the future. Like it's a little bit more difficult given the resources you have. But based on the draft, based on the performance of the position, I do think there might be opportunities to where you find your complete tight end of the future on day 2, or if certain guy falls to you in the 1st round, you have an opportunity to get that in round 1. So I think there's just an opportunity, and I also think another thing that has happened with this position is it almost feels like Brevin Jordan. I don't want to say he's benefited from getting hurt, but it does feel like the legend of Brevin Jordan has kind of like gone way up here without really seeing what he was going to do in a prove it year. Like that's the thing that I think has happened, because last year we went into the season saying, okay, Brevin Jordan needs to prove it. He didn't prove it, not because of his fault, not because of any work he put in, but he didn't prove it. And then all of a sudden, because the tight end position was so crappy, all of a sudden, Brevin Jordan is almost talked about as if, man, this guy's a great blocker. Like, if only we had Brevin Jordan blocking instead of Dalton Schultz, or if only we had Brevin Jordan instead of Cade Stover going out and catching balls, it would look different. And Brevin Jordan was not known as like some sort of awesome blocker, and there was a little bit to be desired when it came to receiving. So I think it's almost become, while I like Brevin Jordan, I like what he can bring, I like what Stover can bring, I like what Schultz can bring, the legend of Brevin Jordan has gone up, not because of anything he did, but because of how bad the tight end position was.
Yeah, people just remember him running down the sideline in the playoffs and having that big play against the Browns, and that's what's on people's minds. And then DeMeco Ryans, he had the hype train rolling for Brevin Jordan. I mean, if you remember in training camp, he was talking about Brevin Jordan. It felt like every other day. He said, "Yeah, I'm showing a Brevin Jordan clip in film every day, how good he did this or how good he did that." So the hype train from DeMeco Ryans for what they expected Brevin Jordan could bring to the table last year, I mean, it was rolling. It was going down the tracks. And then, he gets the ACL injury. He's done for the year. And we only see, 2 games, a game and a half of Brevin Jordan. And so you kind of think, okay, well, DeMeco was excited about him, felt like he was getting his footing. The end of his third season, he kind of had a little bit more at the end of the season than he did at the beginning. So he was kind of figuring it out, and the injury just derailed him. It's like, yeah, but he also wasn't a super productive player before that. Yeah, he might have been figuring it out, but what does Brevin Jordan figuring it out look like?
Exactly. I think Brevin Jordan was going to put his best foot forward. I don't know what that looks like, but in a way, we're talking about the tight ends here on SNL. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you, less than 10 days away from the combine. But it almost kind of has a feel like the tackles of last year, where you think that you're kind of set based on contractual situations. And a lot of it is, well, Titus Howard got hurt, so you put him back out there, he's going to look good. And it kind of feels like Brevin Jordan's almost like, oh well, you're like assuming that the best happened when we didn't really see if the best was to happen. Like if Brevin Jordan goes out there and doesn't have a good year, we're sitting there saying, okay, now they need to add a third tight end. We haven't seen that, and we didn't see like the full version of it, and it really wasn't that great. So you automatically assume, well, it's going to be better next year. And I just think that's kind of a dangerous area to be in. And I'm bringing this together because last year, the Texans proactively, they decided they were going to take a tackle, even though heading into the season, they felt like they had their top 2 starting tackles in Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. And as a result of that, they now don't have to head into this offseason feeling like, man, we really got to get a tackle because they did that. So at the tight end position, I think it's safe to say Dalton Schultz, at least for this price, is not going to be on the team next year. If Cade Stover doesn't make a huge leap, then a 4th round selection is not going to be enough to have you around. And we don't know what's happening with Brevin Jordan. So I just wonder if this year, like when day 2 happens and they see a tight end that can be the tight end of the future, if they don't decide to turn in that type of pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very intrigued to see because to me it feels like there's 2 first-round guys. There's not really a second-round guy from a rookie standpoint. And then there's 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Like there's a bunch of tight ends from that range on. So I'd be very interested to see kind of maybe how the combine changes some of these opinions on the tight ends, some of the workouts that these guys are able to put in, because there were some big-time tight ends that didn't make it out to the Senior Bowl. Gunnar Helm probably the most notable because they had played a lot of football throughout the course of the college football playoff. So Colston Loveland from Michigan, Tyler Warren from Penn State. If you've watched any SNL show, you've heard us mention those 2 guys. Feel like first rounders. And then who's worthy of a 2nd round pick? Who's worthy of a 3rd round pick? I feel like everybody from a draft standpoint still trying to kind of figure that one out. I don't know if the Texans would go 2nd round pick, but hey, 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, a specialty type of guy that only has maybe one really good skill in the later rounds. They certainly should be looking to add a young guy because, as you mentioned, they could very easily have one or no bodies in the tight end room a year from now. If Cade Stover's not any good, you move on from him. If Dalton Schultz, well, you're moving on from Dalton Schultz after this year anyway, just because the price is too much. And then Brevin Jordan, it's a 1-year contract. So,
yeah, it's kind of like
it behooves you to have a young guy in there.
And that's why I kind of feel like this, just the way this roster is and the way the situation is, that's why I'm like really pro trade back this year. Cause I think there's just, if you're stockpiling day 2 picks and you're stockpiling early day 3, I think it just gives you like kind of an opportunity. And I also think they're really good in that area of assessing guys. So the tight end position is definitely something to keep an eye on. Let's take a close look at the guys that are currently on the roster and what we've seen from them. Let's look at Dalton Schultz. So Dalton Schultz last year Every single statistic and every single measurable, like it got worse. And the most troubling thing about it was there was a feel that he was being asked to do what he wasn't capable of when it came to blocking. And there was also a little bit of disappointment in that all the receivers go down. And naturally, you would think that that would mean that Dalton Schultz is more productive in the receiving game. And that did not happen. Now, a lot of fans appear to be frustrated and they just want to say, F Dalton Schultz, get him out of here. I don't want him on my team. His body language sucks. He's overpaid. Screw this guy. That's not realistic. And he's going to, I mean, unless something crazy happens, Dalton Schultz is going to be on the Texans. I don't have the biggest problem with that because I still think he can be a productive football player. But there's a balance between this is one of the most overpaid players on the team, maybe in the league, and this guy is a productive player and this guy stinks at football altogether. There's a lot of discussion that emerges with Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, and cutting him, it costs you money to cut him. Like, to get rid of him from a release standpoint, it costs you money. You lose cap money doing that. So he's not going anywhere.
A productive football player.
And you have to replace the snaps. So not only does it become $2 million more expensive to get rid of him, you also have to go and find a guy to replace him. Now, if you trade him, that's a little bit different. Nobody's trading for Dalton Schultz, though. Like, so we can go ahead and put that out of our mind. Dalton Schultz is on the Houston Texans. You see it right there. The Pro Football Focus pass block grade, 33.3, 79th out of 83 tight ends that played 20% or more of the snaps. Like, that is pathetic. And that's where, like, the effort element comes in. Like, not only was he asked to do something that he wasn't capable of doing, he looked like he had no interest in trying to do it. Like, there's guys on the Texans that if you, like, asked them to play a position, like if you asked Kamari Lassiter to go play slot corner, like, he'd go give it a go. He'd go try it out, and you'd get max effort. Dalton Schultz is out there. The banners on Friday nights on high school football put up more resistance than he was putting up. Like, it was bad. And then the receiving wasn't as crisp. He had just plays where it looked like a year ago he makes that play, and this year he doesn't. Like that one-armed reach-out thing that he did probably 10 times this season. And it's just like it was a much poorer effort and much poorer season than what you saw the previous year, which was a guy in his contract year, a guy who just signed kind of a prove-it deal. Well, he went out there, proved it, and then his agent, pulled the wool over Nick Caserio's eyes and got him a huge deal.
Yeah, and the good news for that is this is basically a contract year, regardless of the third year. Like, he's not the salary that Dalton Schultz is set to make to next, not this upcoming season, but the season. He's not playing under that. Like, he's not playing under that. So this is essentially a contract year, which is good. He's been good in those situations, whether it be in Dallas or whether it be in Houston. The other thing about Dalton Schultz is the body language. I don't disagree with what people's eyes are telling him. I just don't think it ever looks awesome, even when he's doing well. It's kind of
sure.
It's not like a real impressive athletic display when he makes plays. And the other possibility is, and this is where we can blame Bobby Slowick if we'd like, because that seems to be the popular thing to do.
Damn it, Bobby.
He also comes across as kind of the guy where if he thinks that the guy that is overseeing the offense is a dumbass, I just think he could probably take the defeatist attitude to a whole nother level. Because he's a pretty smart guy.
I also wonder too, like,
about him.
Like, hey, I've seen enough football and I've been on enough. Not that Dalton Schultz is some like 20-year veteran or something, but like, I've seen enough football. I've seen enough really good offenses. I wonder if he looked around and was like, we're not going to get it. Like, Bobby could say whatever, we could try whatever, but we're not going to figure it out. So This is the best it's going to be. So why am I potentially risking a hamstring stretching out for an extra pass? Why am I trying to get in the way of George Karlaftis, even though he's going to go back there and try to kill CJ Stroud? Like, Dalton Schultz, you damn sure don't want him in your group with a zombie apocalypse. He's letting you just get caught by the zombies. He's just making his way.
He's playing video games. He's playing video games. All right, the next one on the roster right now, let's take a look at Cade Stover. So Cade Stover, I think he can be a productive football player. How good, who knows? He had the one touchdown. I think it was on the first offensive play of the game against started at the 20, started at the 25, was against Miami.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it was the first play, second play of the game, 25-yard touchdown, kind of a little wheel route joint, just sailed right to him. There was a couple of drop passes.
It was Tennessee in the loss.
Tennessee in the loss, right? Yeah, they got off to the good start. They had the long-ass Dameon Pierce kick return, and then on the next play, they hit Stover, and then they completely wet the bed. Correct.
Yep.
So there was times where it seemed like he had a little bit of juice. There was times where it looked like he was limited receiving. The blocking, it was good. It was solid. Probably needs to be a little bit stronger. Probably needs the game to slow down a little bit.
The run blocking was good. The pass blocking was Schultz-ish.
You go back to the Minnesota game. First play of that game kind of sticks out where he got the hold and killed the Nico Collins. The Texans actually started that one off with like a explosive play from Nico Collins. It got negated because because Cade Stover got completely bombarded and held. So I think Cade can be a fine reserve tight end. I just don't. My whole thing with Cade Stover is like, I could understand if we were talking about Kenyon Green from his rookie year to his second year, where you say, okay, we got to see what happens with this guard. I don't think Cade Stover warrants not looking at a young tight end, whether it's in the second round, whatever. I think he can be good and his career can go a number of ways. But I don't think it's enough to where you just like say, okay, well, we'll see what happens here. We have a 4th round pick invested in him.
Ideally, you'd love to get another young guy in there, and then you move on from Brevin Jordan after this season. You move on from Dalton Schultz, and it's Stover and the other young guy are kind of the base of your tight end room, and then you can add around them. Like that's kind of an ideal situation, but a lot of that's up to Stover and how well he plays. I mean, it's hard to come to the NFL and play tight end. It's even harder when you've only been playing the position for a few seasons like Cade Stover. So there needs to be a big – now that's not an excuse. Like there still needs to be a big jump. Like he's still got to figure it out. He's got to get stronger. The pass blocking has got to be better. He was, just slightly better than Dalton Schultz from a pass blocking perspective. Pretty good run blocker according to Pro Football Focus. There definitely were some moments where it looked like it could have been a lot better, but he was the best among rookies when it comes to run blocking at tight end. 6th in rookie receiving yards at tight end. But, he's never going to be Brock Bowers. He's never going to be Laporta. But, like, could this guy end up being a, blocking kind of his specialty, helps you out with 400 receiving yards and a couple touchdowns over the course of a year? Yeah, he could turn into that guy.
I think he's gonna return to the Texans. I think he's gonna be extremely jacked. I think he's gonna put in that work. I also think there's like a maturing factor with Cade Stover, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully. I like the young man a lot. I enjoy talking to Cade Stover. But I actually saw a podcast that kind of confirmed this yesterday. I think Sideline Sarah tweeted out. It's like a OH podcast type of joint. Ohio thing where, he basically all but said he was kind of homesick last year. That's the furthest he's ever been away from home. He's a small town guy. He grew up on a farm in Ohio. He went to school in Columbus, which I don't think is too far from where that was. So, this is the first time in his life that he's been away from Ohio. I don't think he's going to mope. He even said Houston's nice. He's like, I haven't seen much of it. I just go home and go to the training facility. So that's literally what he said, and I believe him.
Hey, big fella, you got about 3 weeks. You'll live at NRG Stadium in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much fun he's going to have at the livestock show and rodeo?
And I don't think this is like, I'm not saying this like as a bad thing. I think it's a natural thought, like for any pro, but for him, he has all the makeup of a professional football player doing everything he can, but he also has like his upbringing is not the same as the other guys that maybe grew up like in bigger cities. Like he's literally a farm boy who's loved Ohio State his whole life, who went to Ohio State, had Ohio people around him. So I think mentally Cade's probably gonna get over that a little bit. It's kind of like when a kid goes away to college for the first time and, you know, they come back the next semester and it's just completely different. They're a little bit more comfortable. I think that will kind of help him as well. I think his mind will be a little bit more free. And I think he's going to do everything to take care of his body as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what year 2 looks like for Cade Stover, and it'll be very much a ceiling setting year. You'll understand how good of a player he maybe can be based off of his year 2.
Yeah, I don't think he prevents you from looking at a tight end in the draft, which we'll get to in a sec. And then the third tight end, the one who's, I mean, the legend just grew.
Now, when you're looking at the screen here, these are his career totals. Okay, it's a career totals for Brevin Jordan here.
532, 53 receptions, 5 touchdowns, and he's coming back from the ACL injury. I almost wonder if they look at him as kind of like a hybrid when he comes back, to where maybe they would consider him like a separate thing. I don't think he's ever going to be like Andrew Beck or anything like that, but maybe they try to maximize his skill set. Square peg round hole, I think. If you're Brevin Jordan, I think that's got to be like kind of music to your ears, square peg round hole, because I think there's a lot of possibilities with what you can do with Brevin Jordan. And let's just be honest, like the play that everyone talks about, that he himself said he's tired of talking about, that was all him. Like, I mean, that was his running back background, which he had before he went to Miami. That was all him. So Brevin Jordan, I think, is a guy that we'll see what happens. I just think the legend has kind of grown because of how bad the tight end position was last year.
It just, so like, if you're building the tight end room, I think Schultz is your receiver first guy. Like, he blocking, not good for him. So he's the pass catcher. And then Stover, he can run block. The pass blocking is not great. It'll be better next year, I'm sure. But he's sort of like receiving, not first. It's not really his things, but he's not totally just your expert blocker. And then Jordan, like, I don't really know what he is, because he hasn't put, like, is he a hybrid guy that can block and also get out there and receive? Is he more of a receiving back? Like, I don't know exactly what he is, just because he got the late start the rookie year. He had the injury ruin last season.
I don't know that his blocking is much better than Schultz's. Like, it's weird, because I think that he might have added like an element on offense, but like whenever you saw Schultz struggling, it was like, we need Brevin. I honestly don't know that his blocking is that much better than Dalton Schultz's.
Yeah, I mean,
it improved. It was better.
There was
definitely improvement.
Yeah, I mean, it was better last year for the little bit that we saw him than it had been, previous couple years, I suppose. But what can I take from 2 games against the Colts and the Bears? Like, it's not like those are like high-powered defenses that he had to go out there and, stop a monster. So
now let's get to the options at tight end. Last year's tight end market, man, it ended up looking quite buyer friendly. If we look back at what some people got, Jonnu Smith, Zach Ertz, there was a lot of.
I could pull that up for you if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and pull up what went down, and then it's kind of gonna pain you when you look at what Dalton Schultz went for as compared to some of these other guys.
So Caserio ended up having a really nice season. He was $2.5 million.
2.5 mil and one of the best offenses in the league. Yes.
Yeah.
Schultz 1 year 3.
You mentioned Jonnu Smith. He got
I meant Ertz, not Schultz. Ertz.
You mentioned Jonnu Smith, 2 years, $8.4 million total value. Yeah, hold on. I gotta get down here to find Ertz.
Yeah. That was a 1-3.
Yeah, so it's like there were guys that changed teams that were useful players. Fant ended up having a nice enough season once Parkinson, he had some injury stuff, but once he got healthy, there was a little bit better, I think. All right, let's take a look at 2025, though. Not that pretty. Not that pretty. Tyler Conklin, I remember Jets fans thinking he was going to be just, he's going to get on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be awesome.
And by Jets fans, he means Jake Asman. So let's just be honest. He's not. He means Jake Asman.
Juwan Johnson's coming off a career year where he had 33 yards per game. Mo Alley Cox, only thing I really could tell you about him is he played basketball in college. Remember when Pharaoh Brown was a thing?
I can't believe he's still playing.
Old man
Gesicki. Yeah, it's not a great market, but the rookie element is more exciting than the veteran.
Oh, this rookie class. I mean, obviously at the top with Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, Penn State and Michigan, two just nasty, do-it-all Big Ten guys. And then your guy, Gunnar Helm, he's very good. Let me pull up a rookie class here for you.
Yeah, Helm's an interesting one because I think he's more of a receiving tight end that is more of a willing blocker than we thought.
All right, let me drop some knowledge on you for some of these guys from the Senior Bowl. So Harold Fannin Jr., record-setting season at Bowling Green. A little bit of a smaller guy, but I watched a cut-up that one of the draftniks did yesterday of him doing run blocking and pass blocking. He gives more effort as a smaller tight end than we saw Dalton Schultz give his entire career in blocking. Like, it was incredible watching him go. He looked really good at the Senior Bowl. Mason Taylor, people were worried about him being able to run all the routes at the Senior Bowl. It's Jason Taylor's kid, the Hall of Fame defensive end.
Tell the people what college they went to when you talk about draft prospects.
Yep. Too. Mason Taylor went to LSU. Really good at the Senior Bowl. A little bit of a probably more do-it-all tight end. Maybe he doesn't have to do anything great, but a little bit of do-it-all aspect to him. Elijah Arroyo from Miami, nothing for the first few years of his college career, explodes for Miami this year when Cam Ward gets there and they have good quarterback play. And then he dominated at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he had the best weekend of anyone.
He was awesome. Scored a touchdown and then punted the ball out of the stadium, which was hilarious. Jake Brenningstool from Clemson, intriguing name. The Texans have talked to him, or they did talk to him at the Senior Bowl. He's like a long, tall, lanky kind of tight end, but there's definitely some like projection to the body getting into the NFL. But he had some success in the Senior Bowl. Pretty solid player. I'm trying to go through the Senior Bowl guys here. Conyers was at the Shrine Bowl out of Texas Tech. Super disappointing college season. Not anywhere near what they thought he was going to be. Prescorin's been an Ole Miss. He's been there, played a bunch for them the past few seasons. Probably late round guy. Nothing, too exciting about him. Draft people were upset that Benjamin Urasek here from Georgia didn't get invited to the combine. They thought he should have had a combine invite, didn't get invited to the combine. So maybe he's kind of like a little sleeper there. And then Terrence Ferguson, T-Ferg from Oregon. Well, again, a little bit of a do-it-all. Told me, this is a throwback name. You'll like this, Landry. Terrence Ferguson told me models his game after Jeremy Shockey.
Okay. They all do.
Like, what a throwback name.
Jeremy Shockey had the best preseason debut ever, just trucking fools.
Most guys tell you George Kittle, or you've heard some Laportas, or somebody every year says that they're going to be Gronk or something. They're idiots. But to throw it back to Shockey, like Ferguson.
Shockey was a beast, man. Shockey was the swagged out right when the U revival.
And then I'm telling you, a player that just the Texans love in the draft are going to love in the draft process. I just know it. The kid out of Georgia Tech, his name is Jackson Hawes, and he's one of the meanest SOBs. I went and watched some of his stuff because primarily his stuff's blocking. He had 15 catches this season for Georgia Tech. But he's one of the meanest SOBs blocking at the tight end spot that I've seen in recent memory. And when he talked to the Texans, the Senior Bowl, he's like, yeah, he's like, we really got the energy going in the room. Like, I felt really good about it. And I was excited and they were excited. I was just like, blocking only tight end. And then he went out there in the Senior Bowl and he mossed a guy. He had a one-handed catch down the sideline.
Well, I mean, Haynes King's not quite throwing the ball down the field, if we're being honest. It's a little bit different.
And that was his only year at Georgia Tech. Previously, he played at Yale. So Jackson Hawes, Georgia Tech, just keep that in the back of your mind. It would not shock me if he ends up as a member of the Houston Texans when the draft's all said and done.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting position. It's going to be interesting to see what Haley does. Obviously, not great, but it's not completely dismissive. Like, there's no Shaq Masons. There's not like a Shaq Mason vibe with with this position. So we'll see what happens with the tight ends. But we do know that Nick Caley, he does like.
I like tight ends.
He does like them.
I like tight ends.
Yes, he does. So we know that. We'll see how much he likes the ones that they have, how much he likes the ones that they can add. Not a lot of opportunity in free agency, although I will say last year there's not a lot of opportunity. Dalton Schultz looked pretty good.
I thought there wasn't a lot of opportunity last year, and I was dead ass wrong about that. So
Austin on the soup says
Xavier Restrepo, the wide receiver out of Miami, in the second. Elijah Arroyo, Miami, tight end in the third, and then Devin Neal, the Kansas running back, in the fourth.
Okay, yeah, Neal. You
want to go offense heavy? Be my guest. That'd be certainly. You'd be a much better pass catching team with that.
Yeah, the Neal thing's interesting. I don't know what he's going to be in the league. You never know with these running backs. That's going to be.
People are worried about his top end athleticism.
Yeah, you know how backs are.
He was good at Kansas. Some teams are going to like that he stayed at Kansas, even though teams were offering him lots of money to leave.
NIL
Kansas
money.
Yeah. So people are going to like that. He's one of the kind of the faces of Kansas not being a laughing stock at football anymore.
Yeah, he had some good games.
Real productive player.
Very productive. All right, so that's the breakdown of the tight end position. We know Nick Caley. He's intrigued by it. Well, we know that there's some intriguing people, including perhaps the most polarizing guy on the Texans roster in Dalton Schultz, who probably not going to go anywhere. Shaq Mason, probably gone. Dalton Schultz, probably here. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, whether you like tight ends when it comes to this, whether you like tight ends or not, when it comes to this Texans stuff.
I like tight ends.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Cody
I like tight ends.
Cody does too.